Hey fam, today I want to have a conversation with you about deed restrictions. Yeah, when you're buying land, you need to really know about your deed restrictions. Whether you're buying real estate, period, you need to know about your deed restrictions. I'm going to tell you a little story about Erica. Erica was very ambitious. She was a young lady. She studied hard. She went through school, completed school. She grew up in a low income. She basically lived in public housing the majority of her life. But Erica was very ambitious. She was very knowledgeable. She secured a job, secured the employment. She worked hard. She saved the money. And she finally saved up enough money to buy a house. She always, when she rode the school bus going to school, she used to see this neighborhood, Brooklyn Heights. And she always said she wanted to buy a house in Brooklyn Heights. Those homes were just so cute, very modest, very nice, and all the yards were perfectly manicured. So Erica bought a home, and when she bought the home, she finally found the home, and she had a neighbor. Her neighbor was very kind. She'd been there since Brooklyn Heights was erected. She always been there. She'd been there for over 30 years. Great neighbor, always treated her kind, treated her pleasant. So Erica got nestled in, moved into the house, and she looked at her yard, and she always wanted a garden, a nice vegetable garden. And it finally came springtime. She was rubbing her hands together. She couldn't wait. She went down to the local store and bought some seeds, bought some seedlings, bought some dirt, got some flower seeds. Man, she was excited. So she went in her backyard, and she started digging up the turf grass. And when she started digging up the turf grass, she noticed that the soil looked pretty good. She was excited. And she went ahead and got her little fence and built her little garden. And upon completion of the garden, she kind of sat on her back porch to kind of sit back and look at that beautiful garden that she erected. Erica was proud. She really felt accomplished. She really was enjoying home ownership. But shortly after that, maybe a day or two after that, the mail person came by and they delivered some special mail that she had to sign off for. She was like, what is this? But she noticed it was from the Homeowners Association. And so she was kind of nervous. She wondered why she received the letter. She knows she paid her bills. She opened up the letter, and she was cited. She was cited for commercial cultivation. Yes, she was cited for commercial cultivation. The letter basically told her that you need to immediately remove your garden in your backyard, or you face fines, or we can move it and escalate it to another level. So she immediately went over to her neighbor's house and talked to her, because she knows she'd been there for well over 30 years. She knew the rules. She knew the ins and outs of the neighborhood. And her neighbor sat on the swing, and they began to talk, and she began to explain everything that took place. And her neighbor just kind of dropped her head and shook it and said, well, you know, when you had all that paperwork during the time of closing, and all in that paperwork, there were some papers, a couple of words in there called deed restrictions. And when you sign off for this property, those deed restrictions, they were very detailed. And they say, basically, no altering your landscape. You couldn't do any sheds. You couldn't do any gardening. You couldn't do it. She said, I couldn't even plant just a few plants out there. She said, no. Notice all of our yards are manicured pretty much the same way. All of our front yards and backyards, they all have the same shrubbery. We all have the same grass. And we got to maintain it like that, because the people that built this neighborhood, that built this community, they wanted to maintain the look, the aesthetics, and they wanted to ensure that everybody kind of abide and kept it nice and clean and pleasant to look at. And Erica really didn't understand, because, you know, she kind of grew up in apartments, and She never really had a yard of her own. But she said it was so much paperwork. It was so much information that, and it seems like we were going through that at closing so much. She said, yeah, she said, but the key is you got to look at some of those things. You got to read it because there are deed restrictions. And in this community, we got deed restrictions, and they strictly hold us all accountable for these deed restrictions so that we can keep our value up, so that we keep the uniformity of the neighborhood. That's why this neighborhood still looks the same after 30 years. So the lesson learned is, before you buy property, make sure you know what you're getting into. Make sure you ask to take a look at the deed restrictions, because the deed restrictions, they can restrict you to do what you really want to do with your own property. So be wise, be vigilant, and let's make sure you do your homework. All right, till the next time, lesson learned. Take care. Stay blessed.